There comes a moment in every life when the very thing that once helped you survive begins to quietly destroy you. The mind, once a faithful servant, becomes the master. It whispers, it calculates, it judges. It fills the silence with its own voice until you can no longer hear anything else. Carl Jung believed that the greatest dangers we face are not from the outside world, but from the inner one. He said that the mind can turn into its own worst enemy when it forgets its place within the total psyche. Most people live without realizing that the endless stream of thoughts that passes through them is not who they truly are. They become identified with it, possessed by it. The ego becomes inflated, convinced that it alone defines reality. And so the more we think, the less we see. Our civilization has worshipped the intellect for centuries. We value speed, logic, productivity, precision, all fruits of the conscious mind. But something else has quietly withered: imagination, intuition, the language of symbols, the feeling of connection to the soul. When those are neglected, the mind becomes unbalanced. It starts to devour itself. You can feel this whenever you cannot stop thinking, when the same thoughts repeat in circles, when you replay conversations, when silence feels unbearable. The mind that once served you becomes a tyrant. It tells you that something is always missing, that something must always be fixed. It convinces you that you are what you think, and so you try to outthink pain, to outthink sadness, to outthink fear, and only deepen them. Jung saw this as a kind of possession, not by an external demon, but by autonomous parts of the psyche, fragments of emotion and memory that have broken away from consciousness. They speak through us, act through us, and yet we call them me. When you shout in anger, when you spiral in anxiety, when you sabotage your own peace, it is not the whole of you acting. It is a complex, a piece of psychic life seeking recognition. The enemy mind tries to keep control by suppressing what it cannot understand. It pushes fear and desire into the dark and calls itself rational. But what is repressed does not die. It waits. The neglected parts of the psyche grow stronger in the shadows until they finally burst into consciousness as symptoms: depression, obsession, exhaustion. These are not punishments. They are messages. They are the soul's way of saying, you have lost balance. Modern life rewards imbalance. We live in a storm of data, screens, arguments, and opinions. We measure worth by mental performance, and so collectively, we suffer the same fate as the individual ego. The intellect has outgrown its roots. We are clever, but not wise. We are connected, but not whole. We have knowledge, but little understanding. Jung wrote that every step forward in consciousness is a step away from instinct, and therefore a risk. We needed the mind to free us from nature, but now we must free ourselves from the mind. Not by destroying it, but by restoring it to harmony with the rest of the psyche. That begins with awareness. When you start to observe your thoughts, to see them instead of being them, something shifts. You realize that the mind is not solid. It's a movement, a series of waves in a vast ocean. And you are that ocean. You are the space in which those thoughts appear. The watcher, the silent witness. At first, this realization is unsettling. The mind does not like being watched. It rebels. It floods you with noise. But if you persist, a new kind of stillness emerges, one that is not emptiness, but presence. The silence beneath thought reveals a deeper intelligence. It doesn't speak in words. It moves as intuition, as feeling, as image. Jung called this greater totality the self, the center that holds both consciousness and the unconscious together. The ego, the thinking mind, is only a fragment of that whole. When it forgets its dependence on the self, it becomes anxious and defensive. But when it remembers, it relaxes. It realizes it doesn't have to know everything, to control everything, to protect you from every possible pain. It can finally rest. This is not an intellectual exercise. It is lived through experience, through small acts of presence, sitting in silence without needing to fill it, watching the breath without trying to change it, listening to your thoughts without believing them. Each time you do, the mind loses a little of its grip and awareness takes its rightful place as the center of being. To the modern person, this may sound passive, but it is not. It is the most active form of attention there is. It is the turning of light inward, the act of seeing the seer. In that seeing, the enemy mind dissolves. It becomes what it was always meant to be, a servant of consciousness, a bridge between the inner and outer worlds. When that happens, thought becomes creative again. It serves imagination, it gives form to beauty, it solves without obsessing, it dreams without delusion. The mind becomes an artist, not a jailer, and life begins to feel alive once more. The tragedy is that many never make this shift. They grow old surrounded by noise, external and internal, without ever touching the stillness within. They live entirely in reaction, never realizing that what they take for reality is only a reflection of their unexamined mind. But the possibility of awakening never disappears. It waits in every moment of awareness, in every pause between thoughts. Jung said that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. To do that, you must look directly at the mind, at its fears, its patterns, its endless self-defense. When you stop trying to silence it and instead listen, something miraculous happens. The mind reveals its own suffering. It only wanted to protect you, to make sense of a world that felt too vast. It became an enemy because it was afraid. And when you see that, compassion arises. In that compassion, the war within ends. The noise softens. The thoughts still come, but they no longer command. They pass like clouds across a vast sky, and the sky itself remains untouched. You recognize that you were never the storm. You were always the sky. This realization does not remove pain or uncertainty from life. It simply ends the unnecessary struggle against them. The mind learns to cooperate with the unknown instead of resisting it. It begins to serve truth, not control. And in that service, it rediscovers peace. Jung wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." To choose means to awaken. To awaken means to see the mind clearly, both its brilliance and its danger, and to love it into balance. That is the work of a lifetime, the work of becoming whole. So when the mind becomes your enemy, do not fight it. Do not run from it. Sit with it, watch it, understand it. In time, you will see that the mind was never against you. It was only lost, longing to be reunited with the soul it had forgotten. And when it remembers, it bows in silence. Thought becomes quiet. Awareness shines through. And what once was your enemy becomes your greatest ally. The mind at peace in the service of the even. When the mind is reconciled with the self, the work does not end. The journey is cyclical, not linear. There are days when the old tyranny returns, subtle, insidious, almost invisible. A passing anxiety, a flash of irritation, a worry that refuses to let go. These are not failures. They are reminders that the mind is alive, that it is a force of immense energy that must be respected, not crushed. Awareness is not a shield from life, but a light within it. It does not erase the shadows, it illuminates them. When you practice this inner witnessing, you begin to notice the small betrayals of the mind, the way it exaggerates, minimizes, judges, or insists on certainty. You begin to catch it mid-flight, and with each interception, the grip loosens. Gradually, thought becomes a river flowing through you, not a dam that blocks you. There is a subtle joy in this freedom, not the ecstatic highs of distraction or achievement, but a quiet, unwavering contentment, a steady pulse beneath the surface of life. You discover that presence itself has a texture, a rhythm, a resonance. Even in the midst of chaos, even when the body aches or the world conspires, there is a sanctuary that cannot be disturbed. That sanctuary is not somewhere to reach. It has always been here, within you, beneath the chatter, beyond the stories. The liberated mind does not flee from difficulty. On the contrary, it meets life fully, seeing pain as a teacher and confusion as a signpost. The ego may resist, clutching at certainty and craving safety, but awareness allows it to soften, to see that life's instability is its own nature. Wisdom is born not from controlling life, but from aligning with its flow. And yet the mind's liberation is never solitary. As you come to know the depth of your own psyche, you begin to recognize it in others. The judgments that once separated you from your neighbors, colleagues, friends, or strangers lose their power. You see that their minds are also both servants and tyrants, struggling to reconcile fear with the longing for wholeness. Compassion becomes inevitable because it is no longer an abstract idea, but an intimate understanding. In this way, personal awakening ripples outward. When the mind rests in the service of the self, every thought, every choice carries a different weight. Decisions are made not from panic or egoic ambition, but from clarity, intuition, and a deep-rooted sense of balance. Creativity flourishes, not as a frantic output, but as the natural expression of a mind aligned with something greater than itself. You begin to notice beauty where it was once invisible, to feel connection where you once saw separation, to hear the silent music in everyday life.